So this morning, I want to talk about, whoops, wait a second, I'm messing up my screen here. There we go. I want to talk about sensation. And our practice, as we often talk about, promises relief from suffering. And this claim lies at the heart of the Buddhist Four Noble Truths. And it also, though, in modern times emerges from decades of research and clinical interventions and other approaches to alleviating suffering. And with these tools, both the ancient teachings and modern psychology, we seek to be liberated from restrictive patterns of the mind. I mean, that's really the thing that can get in the way of living more consciously, living with greater freedom, and so forth. And the reason that is, as we all know, is that the mind is the home of all of our judgments, our anxieties, our cravings, our aversions. It's where a lot of the mischief happens. But historically, if you look at many contemplative, if not most contemplative practices, they don't start with the mind. Instead, we're asked to start by attending to sensation. And I'm going to hopefully convince you today why that's a good idea. And that really remains true in our modern time. So rather than beginning to wrestle with harmful mental habits right from the start, it's often advised that we cultivate awareness of sensory information, sight, sound, bodily sensations, for example, as it enters the mind, as we experience it. The traditional approach of focusing on sensation is clearly enunciated in one of the famous Buddhist suttas, the Anapanasati Sutta. And it's one of the most widely studied Buddhist texts on stabilizing the mind and achieving deep insight through that practice. Thich Nhat Hanh emphasized this a lot in his teaching, and his variation on this goes something like this, or one of his teachings is, and I'm just going to run through this briefly. Breathing in long, I know I am breathing in long. Breathing in short, I am breathing in short. Breathing out long, I know I am breathing out long. And breathing out short, I know I am breathing out short. And he goes through the whole body that way. And Western psychology has really skewed toward emphasizing thoughts and emotions, and really has consigned sensation to the margins. They haven't really given it a lot of attention. And modern psychology, though, and neuroscience are finally catching up, I think, to the importance of sensation if you look at the direction that the research has gone in. And of course, again, this is something the Buddha understood 2,600 years ago, that we needed to look at sensation and sensory experience. And from a scientific modern perspective, there are good reasons for beginning with sensation as we embark on this path of personal improvement and relief from suffering. And there are advantages to focusing on the breath initially compared to other experiences, as the Sutta recommends from the Pali Canon, because research over the past 2 decades has really helped us understand how sensation relates to human flourishing. We know that stress inhibits sensation. So as we reduce our stress with practice, we open our doors to greater sensory experience. We open the sense doors. And human beings over the millennia prioritize thought over sensation because our early survival as a species depended on it. We needed to use our capacity for thought to interpret what was going on around us, to predict as best we could what was going to come next based upon past experience. And sensation wasn't all that helpful in this initial survival process. But sensation, or the dana in Pali, is a fundamental aspect and an important aspect of the human experience. And the Buddha clearly recognized this. It's an important part. It's the way we experience the world. It's why we talk about sense doors. It's our interface with the world. So how could it not be important? It refers to feelings or experiences we encounter through the senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and the Buddha added the sixth one, mind or thought. Um, and these are all linked directly to this cycle of suffering. For example, pleasant sensations lead to craving. Unpleasant sensations lead to aversion, and neutral sensations often lead to ignorance or indifference. So they really do affect our cycle of suffering. And this cycle perpetuates dukkha or suffering. Mindfulness of sensation is a key aspect of Vipassana, insight meditation. And it asks us to observe our sensations. I often say during sit, just watch sensations they arise without getting pulled into a story about them. Because observing sensations without attachment or aversion is really an important step in our practice. So practicing mindfulness of sensation helps break the cycle of craving and aversion that we often get caught in. So specific techniques, including things like the body scan, where we systematically observe sensation in different parts of the body, and breath awareness, where the Thich Nhat Hanh practice I just described focuses on the sensations of breathing. And then we bring to that the practice of equanimity in response to sensations. We just recognize them, we hold them, we don't attach to them or try to push them away. We use the insights gained from observing our sensations to understand the true nature of reality that we talked about last time. It helps us see clearly. But we recognize that sensations are transient, they arise and pass away. They're not self, they're not who we are, they're just experiences of that we have. But we need to remember that sensation is a very important doorway to deeper insight and freedom from suffering. And with our practice, we transform our relationship with sensation that I alluded to a moment ago, not pushing away, not clinging. So sensation becomes a powerful guide, a powerful roadmap to our spiritual growth. It's what we do when we talk about going to the body to discern what is happening with our experience. You will remember that when we've talked about the four foundations of mindfulness that the Buddha taught, the first one was mindfulness of the body. He recognized the importance of sensation as a source of information about the world, as a source of information about our place in the world, of our experience in the world. And if we ignore the sensory experiences, if we stay in our heads, we miss an awful lot of important information. We recognize that sensing is not the same thing as thinking. And we preserve space, we make space for sensation in our minds, which are typically overrun by thoughts, concepts, mental habits, and so forth. Because by tuning into, and we're going to do a practice in a few minutes, by tuning into sensation, we create spaciousness. We enlarge our world. We get out of our heads. So think about the beauty of nature, the taste of delicious food, a beautiful piece of music, touch. All these things involve our senses. And tuning into any and all of them gets us out of our heads where we spend way too much time. It's a way to really transcend all those mental habits, all the tape loops that go around in our heads, all the rumination. And in this way, tuning into senses helps bring us into presence. And and that is where we're able to see things as they are, not as we want them to be, as we talked about on Saturday, once we're in that fully present mode. So that's the importance of sensation. And after we have some discussion, I want to do a short guided meditation it's called the Five Senses Gratitude Meditation. I actually developed it about 10 years ago when I was teaching at the Fluvanna Women's Prison, because when you live in that kind of sterile, gray environment, senses tend to get shut down. And the women really appreciated sort of opening those sense doors even within that setting as a way of finding greater freedom even while they were incarcerated. So we're going to do that practice. I resurrected it for us today in terms of this this topic. So let me stop and we will talk about sensation.